Hey, and we are live. We could have been live a second ago, but anyways, yay! Hey, peeps! Ann Ganguza here. Thanks for joining me today for our live Facebook broadcast. I am really excited to be talking with a very good friend of mine and colleague, the VO tech guru, Tim Tippets himself. Woohoo!
Hello,
Thanks, Tim,
everyone.
for joining
Absolutely. My pleasure.
So I wanted to introduce you to my group
Mhm.
because you have been in the industry for quite some time. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do in the voiceover industry.
Well, really, I started my career in the music industry. I used to produce songs and, as a signed artist, nationally distributed and whatnot. But at one point, excuse me, people, I have a cough today. I was I was working with Herbie Hancock to recreate hit songs from scratch to teach people how to sing, right? And as a signed artist, I began to travel and all that fun stuff. Anyway, I got into corporate, became a team leader, systems builder, et cetera, et cetera. And eventually wound up back where I am now when I got back into writing music beds for film and TV and all that kind of stuff. And then got into VO and discovered, well, when I got into VO with all of my construction experience and audio experience, my initial thought was, oh, yeah, I got this. This is easy. And then I got into the actual tech side of it and realized, yeah, I don't got this at all. It's a completely different animal. With music, you're mixing things over the top of your vocals, and you can make all sorts of, and as a guitar player, and a Strat happens to be my favorite guitar, which just makes tons of noise, and I'm used to just gating that thing while mixing. But when you're in your own space, I discovered, hey, you got to take this very, very seriously. And being the type of a person who will go into a cave for 2 weeks until he comes out with the right answer, right? I'm just very obsessed with what is the actual right answer and what's the most efficient and easiest thing that a person can do in order to get there. And I did take my time to do it, but I finally perfected it, and then got to the point where the community started to get to know me through, video casts and podcasts and all that. And then eventually people started reaching out to me, asking me all sorts of questions. So I started making videos on YouTube to answer those questions. And then this VO tech guru persona took over, which I hate that name, really, because it sounds like I'm coming down off the mountain with tablets in my hand, like thou shalt not do this and so on and so forth. But it turned into a brand and people accepted it. And, last year I did some stuff at VO Atlanta, some presenting and some building these panels here that you see back here.
Which I just asked you about.
Yeah, a little plug. If you want to know, go to VO Tech Guru. These panels are awesome. You can make them for $25 a piece. They'll normally cost you about $150. But they do a great job, both here in my control room and in my booth. But anyway, so I started getting hit up by the VO community big time. And I decided to create a course called Audition Ready, which means getting you ready to audition like a pro. I know a lot of people think that it has to do with Adobe Audition, even though I do use Adobe Audition. But I started taking on students one-on-one, and eventually decided that it was time to share with the masses what I could, because I could only take 4 students per month, which is just really underserving the community. And I kind of went on a mission because, the paradigm shift occurred a while ago with home studios, which, by the way, anyone listening, please stop advertising your studio as a home studio. That's a lot like putting out a restaurant sign that says home cooking. Okay. You can expect to pay
Great
about 15.
advice.
Yeah. You can expect to pay about $15 for a home cooked meal. Right. Fine cuisine, right, where someone might buy a $400 bottle of wine, is a little bit better choice. So start using Pro Studio, that you have a Pro Studio. So just getting ahead there a little bit, I wanted to mention that real quick while I tripped over that. But anyway, so what I decided to do was to take the Audition Ready course and put it online. And so far, with our private Facebook group, we have, I think, 145 members and quite a few more enrolled in the actual course, while I'm so-called dripping content, which basically means that you're creating content as you move forward. Right now, the EQ module is finished, and I've moved on to compression and so on and so forth. So that's kind of, and I'm also a pro voiceover artist. I've, all the usual suspects. I've voiced for a lot of them. And, I create presets for people. I cast, I create music. I just kind of a jack of all trades and maybe a master of a couple, I think would be a good way to wrap it up for me.
Well, let me back up just a bit, because you talked about a lot of things that you do now, and you did mention this course, which I'm excited about. But before we get to this course, first of all, I think as a voice talent myself, I'm not an audio engineer, and
Mhm.
I know I work with students all the time we're all so confused about audio.
Mhm.
I didn't go to school for audio, but yet I need to be able to produce audio that sounds great for my clients. And so there's a certain level of education that I need to have to be successful in my business. And there's so much out there's information out there, but there's so much I don't know what to believe. And also a lot of that information I have not one iota of understanding. So I think
Yeah.
what makes this a little bit different is I want to talk to you a little bit, what are the basics of sound that people need to understand for being a voiceover artist and for producing good quality audio? There's probably some core components that you talk about.
Yeah, so that's a really simple question, which
Mm-hmm.
would have a seemingly complicated answer, but it's really not. I mean, hey, I could go through all of the basics, like having an acoustically sound space to voice in, but what does that mean, right? Like, people
Mm-hmm.
go and get 2-inch foam and they stick it all over the walls and they figure they're good to go, and not realizing that that's not going to handle a lot of the low frequency stuff. It's just going to pass right through the foam and it's going to come right back out and make your booth sound very boxy. For someone who's a boomer, especially if you're not handling those low end frequencies, you get a lot of woo, 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 kind of woofing and whatnot in the room. So that would be one aspect of it, obviously. But to kind of sum things up, to tell you what it is that you need to know, let me back up a little bit, because I know that a lot of people listening to this or watching this right now have experienced this. You go online and you go into these forums and you ask questions in the expert forums, like, what is compression? And then all of the answers you get back, everyone suddenly wants to sound like the smartest person in the room, and using all these esoteric terms where you're just, your head spins immediately and you're just like, wow, what a turnoff, right?
Yeah.
So I really got tired of that, and I'm all about efficiency and what is the core truth? What is or is not complicated? Can we find a way to break this down into English and transfer that into something that's easy to absorb and something that you can actually apply? And those basics are, as I mentioned before, acoustics, mic technique, which is just really, really important. A lot of people just don't, as a singer myself, I thought I knew what mic technique was. And as a singer, sure, I knew what that meant. But as a voiceover artist, no clue. And how that affects you relative to your space and what it is that your space can do to respond if you're not on the mic properly, what your levels should be, so on and so forth. Is that mic right for you? Earlier we were talking about the Rode NT1A. Typically someone will go to Guitar Center. Most of those guys behind the pro desk, they're good at what they do, but they're musicians. And so they recommend, well, hey, the NT1A is the quietest mic, and you should just get that in Pro Tools and you're good to go. And I just think that's horrible advice, especially if you're a female voiceover artist, because females tend to be more sibilant and males tend to be less sibilant because we speak with a flatter, more relaxed tongue. It's just the reality of the situation. It's not a good or bad thing. But the NT1A is not a good mic for someone who's sibilant, right? So that would be another element. Understanding EQ, understanding compression, downward expansion, what you should or should not be normalizing to, editing like a ninja. How do you go about doing that? Because when I'm in my booth and I'm voicing, I like to call it making coins fall from my mouth, right? That's what I'm doing. And if I'm not in there doing that and I'm out here editing, well, that's less coins. And I'm not down with that. So being a huge fan of efficiency, I really go after things hard to find the absolute most efficient way to do something. And if someone else has a better way of doing something, I will take that on and incorporate that. Okay. And that's really what the course is all about. So again, like I said, it's a really simple question and it could be a very complicated answer. But going back to what I was saying earlier as a callback here, it would be wise for someone in a forum, which I've done before, where I jump in and someone says, hey, what is compression? guys, just tell them, give them a basic idea. It's an automatic volume leveler. Bring it down to human standards. Not everyone has gone to MIT or wherever in order to learn what it is that they've learned. And when I say bring it down, I don't mean that as an insult. It's just that your standard human being just can't get their head around this thing, because you say something like EQ and immediately people's heads start spinning. But when you break it down correctly, like I have in my first video, which you've watched, right, on EQ, to understand the 5 basic regions of EQ, you can simplify it. It doesn't have to be this big, rocket surgery type of thing, as I like to jokingly say. But that, I'm on a mission, basically. It's, I want, since the paradigm shift occurred and all of these people are being handed this equipment that 10 years ago, not even some of the best studios had possession of, because this stuff just didn't exist. And now it's very affordable. We can just walk into a Guitar Center and buy an Apollo Twin, for instance. And, for voiceover, even though I have the Apollo Twin, when you don't know how to use it, it's kind of like putting a jet engine on a VW Bug, right? It's overkill. But proper application, understanding of how the thing works, how to EQ, how to compress, so on and so forth, it can be your best friend. And since there are so many people out there who are, I will say, suffering, because they are, and I believe that's why a lot of people are being drawn to the course so quickly, is because it eliminates the confusion, number one. And number two, as I like to say, it kicks the tech gremlin out of your booth for good. And who needs that kind of anxiety in their life? Right.
Well, that is so true.
You're trying to perform. You're trying to perform. You don't need this extra, if you knew that you understood that you did sound good and you knew why, and it wasn't this big SAT test that you had to go through, how great would that be? And so that's what I decided to create. And so far, the judges are, plenty of thumbs up. I've got one guy in the Facebook group, which we have dedicated to this course, who likens it to Neo being jacked into the Matrix for the first time, which I thought was really a cool thing, a neat thing to hear. So yeah.
So I'm going to ask Diana for this course that we're talking about. Diana's going to provide the link to all of you guys in the comments for the Audition Ready Online course. And there's some cool things that I want to point out about that. There is a free module on the page, a free preview. So if you guys want to get an idea as to Tim's teaching style and what the content would be like, you can just click on the video in the middle of the page for a free preview to get an idea of what that's all about. And in just a minute, if Diana posts that, yep, she posted the link. Thank you so much. Diana actually brought up a really good question, and I know you addressed it before, but just to make sure, do you have to, is this presented in Adobe Audition and or is it applicable to all different editors?
And I see that pop-up that just came up. So yeah, I want to make it clear that when I built this course, the intent was to get people audition ready. And for me, since I also cast people as well, just a quick background on why I called it Audition Ready is that 80% of what comes in is just throwaway. That's the reality of the situation. The audio is either bad or the read is not right for the part, etc. Then you have that next 10% between 80 and 90 where the audio may be great, but the read, they're not right for the part. And then you have this top 10%, which is what I call Audition Ready. These are the big time people who get 10% of the work that everyone talks about, but there's a reason why they get 10%. The top 10% gets the majority of the work. And that's because not only are they right for the part, not only are they good at what they do, but they sound awesome. Okay. So that's where Audition Ready came from, was to get you audition ready in that top 10%. So when you're auditioning with the top 10%. So when I see, for instance, that there are 100 people, this is in the past because I don't do P2P anymore, but my outlook on this, when I would see 100 people, is I know I'm only competing against 10. I'm not competing against the other 90. All right.
Right.
So, but to answer the question, what you learn in here, even though I do use Adobe Audition to teach, I also provide free EQs that you can bring into your DAW, such as Twisted Wave, or if you're using something like Audacity or something like that, you can have access to the same tools, and you can apply what it is that you learn directly inside your DAW. But beyond that, you can actually start to manipulate hardware. And funny little story, I had a gal who went into a studio and she saw a 416, and she told the engineer that if she cut her at 8138, that would get rid of her sibilance. And she went through my course, and the engineer was like, what? So anyway, he said it right there, and sure enough, he goes, I don't know how you knew that, but thank you. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it allows you to do, is to truly understand what it is that's going on at a pace and in a way where human beings can understand this technology. Because guys, it's not this, I'll say it again, it's not rocket surgery. It's the way that it's communicated. It's like anything.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, you started a new job at some point. Maybe you were a kid, maybe you're an adult starting a new job, and you're nervous as hell, right? A month later, after you've worked for 30 days, you look back and you go, what the hell was I worried about? It really wasn't that big of a deal at all. And that's what I'm bringing to this course, is my experience being able to break down technologies and complex, so-called complex things, and turn them into simple English, but show you via graphics and some other kind of examples that I use, that so it'll stick. And not only that, but you'll have, because I know this question will be asked, you will have access to that moving forward as well. So whenever you need to revisit it, whether it's a video or a quiz that I have, which follows each module, you'll have access to that.
Oh, that's great. So there's quizzes. I love that. There's coming from another teacher. So I actually, guys, I have the Audition Ready Online kind of up on the screen here. And Diana has given all of you the link to that. Tell us a little bit. You've created one module so far that is ready, right? And tell us what module that is, and then what's going to happen next, and when will those modules happen?
Okay, so let's define module first of all, because the way that I'm breaking it down is we tackle EQ first, and then we tackle compression, and then I'm going to tackle downward expansion, which is a fancy way of saying that when you stop talking, there's a way to lower the noise floor. And then when you start talking, that opens up again to full channel, so that your words aren't cut off at the beginning or at the end. And that's a huge mystery for a lot of people, what they should do there.
Yes.
But the reason that I started off, right, you're raising your hand.
I'm raising my hand. That's a big mystery to me.
But the reason that I started with EQ, actually, when I teach, I normally start with the nature of sound and what's happening at a molecular level, which I'll get to later. That's something else that will be included. But the most important thing here, and the reason that I let in with EQ, is because that's the big mystery, right? I mean, people can figure out compression to some degree, but EQ seems so incredibly vast. But if you focus just on a few areas, and I provide a reference chart for that so that you can go after it, but I also provide live examples of me bringing in VOs that sound really bad and then fixing them right in front of you. So you get to see me do that. And then I do an A-B comparison, A meaning before effects are applied, and then B meaning after effects are applied. And the impact will be pretty significant. There's actually on my site, votechguru.com, under services, you can find one example of a pre and post VO where I got someone on mic correctly. He wanted a promo type sound, so it's a little, it's a little amped, but you're going to hear a huge difference between the two samples. And that's something that I bring to the course as well. So a module consists of a subject matter and then a certain amount of videos. Now with EQ, it happens to be 4 different videos, and the first lesson is free, but you can expect me to dig in after watching that video into the more kind of like, one is micro and the other's macro, right? So you're going to see the macro version when you go to the page, but then rest assured I get micro about it, but not so micro that you're sitting there going, huh? You'll definitely get it. And inside the Facebook group that I have dedicated for students, as yesterday I posted a GIF, whatever your choice is, of, would you like to play a game, right? So I'm going to be posting some things inside there where people can take the files and then fix them and then post them. And other students can post their pre and post. In fact, one of our members, Sam, posted something today to the group the pre and post to see, to check comprehension. And that's something that I encourage inside the videos. And then, of course, I drop in and provide bonus content as well as advice and so on and so forth, so that there is some oversight there. And so people don't need to feel as though, well, what if I get into this course and I go through it, but then I'm in a situation where I'm under supported? That's not going to happen. Right.
Great. So you offer that Facebook group in addition to, which is great, all of the modules, all of the video, and any other required materials will be part of the course. So you were mentioning.
Well, let me just very quickly. I'll just answer the rest of your question.
Oh, okay.
As far as what this is called when you drop content over time, is it's called dripping content. And that's what's happening here. So I'm offering the course at a discounted rate right now. It will eventually go up to its peak price, which it may actually even go up higher, because I've been told by a lot of my peers that, especially the videographers, that the price should be quite a bit higher. But for now, whatever, we're testing it. I want to make it accessible. I'm dripping content over time. And so what that means is the EQ module is finished. I just started on compression with amplitude and dynamics, which is the first video that I made in that series. And then I'll move on to threshold and ratio, which will be the next video. And then the video after that will be all about attack and release, right? And so so it'll be very comprehensive, but it will be broken down in chunks, so that people can absorb it and then go away and put into application what it is that they learned, so that by the time they come back to the next video in that series, they're not going to feel uncomfortable. And even if they do feel uncomfortable, again, the information's there. And I always encourage inside the videos, hey, if you don't understand what I just said, rewind right here until you get it before you move on. So I'm very much into foundational learning. I don't know if it's my construction background or whatever, but you can't, if you build a foundation that's out of whack, the whole rest of the house is going to be out of whack, and we're not going to do that. Right.
Exactly.
So
you mentioned a special price, which you guys can see right now, for this course. And now with this special price that you have right now, I see you're down to 197.
Yeah, that went up from 147 to 197 this last weekend, and it's going to go up to 247, because now I'm releasing the compression course, and I have the first one out of 3 done and in the can, and it's available there. And so when that module is complete, which will be soon, it'll go up to 247, and then so on and so forth. So yeah, that's the way dripping content works.
So you guys, if you get in now, you're going to have access to all of the material that Tim is going to be creating over time. And I think you mentioned that you were going to do, you were covering all these topics again. You've only covered the one right now. You're on EQ, compression, downward expansion, and all of that. Plus, you guys have access. This is huge, right? The fact that you have access to Tim through a Facebook group where you guys can, discuss, ask questions like that, have that support, that is so imperative. It's so important, especially when it comes to something like this particular topic, which is huge. I mean, to most people, it's confusing. To most people, I don't even know, what do I need to know? Does it sound good? It's so hard. I remember when I first started in this industry to develop an ear for, is it good audio or is it not? And when you don't have somebody to bounce that off of, it's like almost impossible. I will admit to you guys, honestly, in the very beginning, I was near tears trying to get my studio set up, trying to get my sound. I remember I submitted something to, it was a paid job. I submitted something to somebody, and I was mortified when they came back to me and said, it sounds like you're speaking through a tube. And that is the level of, I did not have the ear back then developed. So this type of information would have been so wonderful to have at the time. And so I'm really grateful, Tim, that you are creating something that encompasses the entire scope. And like I mentioned before, you guys can find stuff. There's stuff all over the place, on Audacity, on Twisted Wave, and you just do a YouTube search, but there's nothing really out there that has the base foundation of, here is what it's about, and this is what's important, and it's specifically geared toward voiceover artists. So that, I think, is the first course that has ever been offered by anybody. And I honestly, you can't beat this price down here. Um, at the bottom here at 197. I mean, my goodness, that's just a steal. So,
Mhm.
guys, if Diana posted that link, if you can post that again, that would be great. I do have a couple of questions, or I got a question here that somebody posted. Unless Tim, you want to talk about any other part
Well,
of this course
I
coming up.
just wanted to say, if you act now, I'll throw in absolutely nothing,
There you go.
because this course is fully comprehensive. It has everything that you need to know, or will have everything that you need to know. And I want to make it really, really clear to everyone out there that I'm going to continue adding content. Okay. So if I get a client, for instance, who has something wrong with their audio and it's a specific case, or in the case of, I had a big car manufacturer, someone was doing a video for them and they had on camera sound in a garage, and they were trying to match it to the 416 that they had on site, which was, as you can imagine, a hell of a challenge. But I fixed that, and recording something like that and showing the group what it is that can be done in order to do that is very valuable information. And so I will continue to add content in there. Okay. So it's not just going to be, okay, here's what you need to know about voiceover. The journey is going to continue, and I'll just keep adding new information in there, new products. If I find, I'll add bonus content and whatnot. But in the true spirit of if you act now, I will, because Ann and I talked quite a bit about this course, and she's I don't know if you guys know this about Ann, but she likes to vet things to make sure that that the purity is
I do.
as being represented. Yeah. So
yeah.
But you've seen it. You've been in there. You've been in the Facebook group and whatnot. You've seen the comments. But what I am going to do is, unless you want to break in, go ahead.
Oh no, I just wanted to say, I just want everybody to know that, Tim, when he says he's going to do something and he creates something, there is no halfway with Tim. Tim just creates beautiful things, fully comprehensive, beautiful things. And that is my testimonial. And I'm glad that you said that. I don't really, I vet things before I recommend them. And I'm just so happy that you came out with this course, because every day I have students asking me, or saying, well, okay, but I don't understand. How do I edit? What do I do? What's important? And I don't understand. It's all gobbledygook to me. So I'm so happy to be able to recommend this course to my students and to you guys and to my peeps. So yeah, guys.
That's awesome. Well, I'll tell you what I am going to do, in the spirit of this broadcast and the fact that you have brought me on and your viewers are here, live and watching this and asking questions, which, guys, I really appreciate. I think that's great. What I am going to do is offer an additional 10% off the current price. Okay. And I think we'll just make the code ANNG. So all lowercase, ANNE, lowercase g, for an extra 10% off until let's say Saturday at 12 a.m. How does that sound?
Nice. Right? That is awesome. Thank you so much. That is fantastic. So an extra 10% off. That is a wonderful opportunity for you guys to really get in on the ground floor of something that is amazing. And again, there's that free preview right on the front page. So if you want to get an idea of Tim's style and the content, just click on that free preview. It's like a 12-minute segment. Amazing. And by the way, it's not just audio that Tim is great at. That's why he's called the VO Tech Guru. I mean, we're talking all types of tech. He's fully produced this, and quizzes. Coming from an educator like myself, and I know some people out there in the audience, Diana, we're educators. It makes a difference that you put good quality content there with quizzes, so people can really test their comprehension and make sure that they understand it before they can continue. Because, as you mentioned, you want to be building a great foundation. So
yeah, you really do. The foundation is the single most important thing, because if you're taking bits and pieces from what it is that you pick up off the web, and look, I'm a huge believer in getting as many viewpoints as you possibly can. I think it's really important that, if you can imagine, if you had 100 different professors teaching you about something, how amazing would that be? Mm-hmm. But what if someone gathered all of the pertinent and salient information from those 100 professors and then put it in one place for you? And that's really what this course is all about. So it's really difficult to tell, because, you know, there's so many opinions out there, and you get a lot of, well, it depends on the mic, it depends on the voice, and it depends on, you know, a lot of things. Well, that's true. But what if you taught someone what those things are, what they depend on, and why? If you took that approach, well, now you're putting control in the hands of the artist, and they can get rid of all that anxiety and whatnot, and then focus on performance and not sit there wondering, do I sound good? Should I even send this in? And, you know, as I like to warn my students, I think in the second video in the EQ series is, you know, if you do it right, you're going to listen back to your old stuff, and just fair warning, you're going to cringe more than likely.
Cry like I did.
But that's okay, because those should be tears of joy, right?
There you go. Yes, tears of joy.
So
don't be like me in the beginning of my career, where I actually cried because I didn't know how horrible it sounded and I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
Cry tears of joy because you finally understand it, which is really the cool thing.
There you go. And by the way, the coupon, I just created it while we were talking here, so it's nice. Good to go now.
It's active now. Fantastic. And Diana has posted that. Thank you so much, Diana, for that. I do have a question from, let's see, Darren. Let's see, I'm going to put that up on the board here. About his mic. I don't know. Can you see that okay, Tim?
Let's see. Okay.
His Rode, yeah.
So you have the NT USB mic. I was actually just having a discussion with someone about that, and I asked him if it was the same as the NT1A as far as response goes. And this guy knows what he's talking about. His name's Jim. And he said, no, excuse me. He said, no, they're very dissimilar, for lack of a better way to put it. So I've yet to hear the version of this mic, but Jim Edgar has talked about comparing it to his Mojave possibly, and then posting it. So maybe this broadcast will hold him accountable, which he'd probably do it anyway. He's an amazing guy. VO Tech Tips is the group, by the way, for anyone who's interested. It's on Facebook. But as far as I know, it sounds fine, but there's something that people need to know about microphones. You know, a lot of microphones, like I have the 416 here, it's highly touted, and I have the 103 in my booth, which is also highly touted. But, you know, different mics can have different uses. Out here, I use it in my control room where I'm mixing and whatnot, and also meeting with people and interviews, because it does such a great job at rejecting noise from the side, right? That's why we see them on those big poles in movies when people are recording people and so on and so forth. But the mic itself is not nearly as important as how it's positioned and how it's EQ'd and everything else, and the acoustics in your room. You would be surprised. In fact, if you do go to VOTechGuru.com and then the services tab and you listen to that sample, that is on an MXL $120 mic that you'll be listening to. Okay. And what it was really all about was, obviously in the first sample, you're going to hear that he was not correctly positioned on mic. It was very clear. So I got him on mic correctly. I got a few of the acoustic things handled for him. And then he wanted this promo kind of sound, you know, like fully polished, and that's what you'll hear in the end. But there's a huge gap between the first sample and the second sample. And that was really all about getting him on mic correctly, getting his levels, his input levels correct, getting his stack correct, and then getting his output levels correct. So it's really hard to say directly, are you going to be okay with that mic? Because, you know, each mic is pre-tuned. Okay. But when it comes to microphones themselves, you can generally be okay with just about any mic, as long as you don't have some severe kind of slant in the direction of, like, I wouldn't buy a mic that really warms up the bottom end, because I already have plenty of power there. That would be a bad idea for me. But generally speaking, most mics I can go in and sound just fine with correct mic technique. A good example of that would be I don't have my mic directly in front of me doing Peter Piper, Peter Piper. I have it here off to the side, Peter Piper, Peter Piper, where you can still hear me just fine, except without plosives. And there's nothing wrong with doing this. And not only that, but if I were to move this far away, you're going to hear a lot more of the room.
Right.
Okay. And less of me. But if I move it closely, and this thing apparently needs oil. Okay. If I move it close to me and I EQ it correctly, then I'll be fine on mic. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, and not only that, but I want to really make an important, distinction here. Job number one, as I say in my videos, is to go after the things that we don't want in the audio. Boxiness, boominess, sibilance, things of that nature. If you were just to take care of those alone and process those, because some engineers will say, do nothing with your audio. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I've had plenty of newcomers to me, new producers say, hey, don't do anything with your audio. And knock on wood, every single time I've sent in process audio, and the comments that I get back are, what the hell are you using over there, man? It sounds great, right? So if you're removing bad things like less of your booth and rolling off the low end, stuff that they would do anyway on their end, to them, you're just, compression would be a good example. You're mimicking better mic control, responsible compression, very little bit of compression, okay? For instance, you bring all of those elements together, and now you've got soup, right? And now you've got engineers who are rejecting your audio a lot less often, and they're happy to work with you. And they remember you, by the way, because you've made their life a lot easier. For some reason, when they put your VO on their track, it just cuts through, and they're like, yeah, I'll hire that guy again for sure.
That's a great point. That is a great point. I have another question from Joy. Let me just get this up here.
Sorry for my long responses. I'm very passionate about it.
Exactly. Well, it's great because I think anybody whoever didn't know you now understands how passionate and how comprehensive you are.
Sure.
And so that's going to make for a great course.
But to be clear, I'm very concise in my videos. I move right. There's no fat. There's no fat in them.
Right. So do you see Joy's question up there?
I see Joy. Yeah. Let's see.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a great question. And one of the ways, as I say in one of my videos, is if you can get yourself in a situation where you can test several mics. B&H has this room. It's phenomenal. For anyone who's in New York listening to this, where you can go in and test a mic in a relatively quiet space and just try out whatever you want and see how you sound on it. But really, as I again mentioned in the videos, when it comes to knowing how it is that you sound good on a mic, if you have no knowledge, then the answer is you don't know, because you have to have an expert at some point say, yes, that's the right mic for you, or no, that's not the right mic for you. And without a sample, how could they possibly tell? Now, what could seemingly be the wrong mic could possibly turn into exactly the right mic if you knew what to do to tune your room, to tune that mic via EQ and so on and so forth, in order to make you sound the best that you can on that microphone, right? So the best way that I can answer this question, and I hate to put it this way because it sounds like I'm plugging the course, but really that's not where I'm coming from. Where I'm coming from is either have someone who you trust, who is really in the know, say, yes, you sound good on that mic, or B, educate yourself. Okay. And then know that you do sound good on the mic. That's one of the things about our Facebook group is you'll be able to submit your before and after, and you'll be able to get feedback. But generally speaking, unless there's something wrong with your voice, you're going to sound good on just about any mic that doesn't enhance a problem that you might already have, like sibilance. And when I say problem with sibilance, that's really just an enunciation thing, right? If you have a very sharp S, then it's just the way that you enunciate, and that's okay. But as I said earlier, I wouldn't go and buy a really boomy mic with my voice. I'd get myself in trouble. That wouldn't be a smart move.
What about, because actually I think we both missed this actually. So that was a great answer, because I know a lot of people have that question. Joy is also talking about the mic cord, the cable. What's the difference? Should you go over the top to get a great cable, or?
Yeah, and I'll tell you why I believe you should go over the top to get a great cable. And there may be some tech people who will watch this and cringe by what it is that I'm about to say, but I have a lot of experience with electronics. I used to etch my own PCB boards in bathtubs when I was a teen, building my own pedal effects and whatnot. And I've built tons of chords. And look, the reality is that if you take Megami Gold, for instance, and I have an equipment link on my website, which you can click on if you want to look at all the options for the chords. But here's the thing about putting money into a really good chord. The Megami Gold, for instance, is quadruple shielded. And so there's really no way I've been able to introduce interference into the mic cord. And if something does go wrong, and I know that I've got a $50 mic cord, and it's probably not the problem, that's going to help me get to the problem a lot faster than I otherwise would. And besides, I'd rather pay twice the amount for a cord that's going to last me 4 times longer anyway, right? These Mogamis, chord management, by the way, is another thing I'll be talking about in the group as far as how you should handle your chords. You might have noticed some people will have their mic plugged in, and then the cord immediately just takes a hard bend. And that's a really bad idea because you're putting stress on everything on the end of the cord, and then eventually it goes back. And I get quite a few calls about that type of stuff, by the way. But the proper chord and knowing how to handle your chords, giving you that peace of mind, knowing that, hey, I've got good equipment here. It's, as I always like to say, it's a garbage in, garbage out conversation. When you're first getting started, should you be buying $1,000 mic? Probably not. Should you be buying a $50 cord with a $200 mic? Yeah. Yeah, you should, because now you're safe at home. You're not going to have any problems with that cord. That's a much better combination than a $200 mic and a $15 XLR cord. Right. So, Frank, let's see here. He wants to know if there is a date start to date end offering. Okay. So right now I have a 1-year enrollment period for this, but just to be clear, that's only because I've just gotten into Thinkific as a platform. I myself am learning the platform. My intent is to give access to everyone for my lifetime, right? Because I could say lifetime membership, right? But what if something happens to me? So again, in the interest of full transparency, and if something were to happen to me, I would do my very best to make sure that, I don't know, Anne, maybe you could take over the platform or whatever, but that it would continue. But the bottom line is you can go back and watch the videos and take the quizzes anytime you want, moving forward. So if you need a refresher on something, then sure. And it's 2 years from now, dive back in. But just know that the only reason that the 1-year expiration date is in there right now is because I've been so busy building these modules that I just haven't been able to get in and figure out how to take. I think we have 180 members in there now. It's just filling up very quickly, and that's a lot of things to manage at one time. And absolutely. So I need to get with the Thinkific staff and say, hey guys, I need to spend a half an hour with you. But in the meantime, no worries. You've got plenty of time to learn it, number one. And number two, I do plan on giving eternal access.
That's
for
great.
Everything.
So
okay.
I don't want to take up too much of your time, so I'm just going to limit it to one last question that we have here.
Sure.
From Jack. Let me just display that up here about his USB mic.
Should I try to save up and get a mic? Okay, so he has a USB mic because it's the best way he could get started. He has issues with buzz on a recording. Should he try to save up to get a mic without? Should I save up and get a mic without a USB connection? I think he meant to say, should I try to save up and get a mic with? Oh, without a USB. Got it. No. He means XLR. Okay. XLR. Should he save up and get? Okay. So here's the thing about USB technology. I'm very encouraged by what it is that we're seeing, especially in the Apogee mic line. I think that's definitely among the top contenders out there as far as USB mic goes. But we're still hampered by technology at this point in time because a dedicated XLR interface has a preamp in it, and it has some other components in it that you can't fit into a mic capsule. We're just not there yet. We're getting there with some of these microelectronics, but in order to fit all of the technology to make your preamp the cleanest that it can be, and give you the greatest amount of control and so on and so forth, and not only that, the greatest amount of stability, still at this time, an XLR interface with an XLR mic is the best option. Front loading the chain with as much good stuff as you possibly can is the best idea until the USB technology catches up, which I have all the faith in the world it will eventually. Yes. And the closest that we've gotten right now is the Apogee, which Ann, you and I were talking about before. It picks up everything. It's an extremely sensitive mic, and I have one here. And whenever someone says, "Hey, which USB mic should I buy?" I say the Apogee. It's the Apogee mic. It's a no-brainer. But in the meantime, if you have buzzes in your recording, you can contact me at info@votechguru.com, and because I do offer a free 15-minute consultation for people as I have time to do it. I'm pretty busy these days, but if you have something that you need immediate help with and you need to hire me to help you figure out what that is, great. But I also want to point out that moving forward, as I add to these modules, I will show you how to go after with what's called a notch filter, which is a very common issue. People have a 60 hertz ground loop problem. We can go after that with a notch filter, knock out just that 60 hertz signal, leave the rest of it alone, and the buzz is gone. And I always get this, like, you're a miracle worker. No, I'm not. I'm not a miracle worker. I just know that in America, we have electricity running through your house at 60 hertz. It's not, it's not rocket surgery again. And in Europe, it's 50 hertz. So when I have someone contact me in Europe where they say, I've got this buzz, I bring in a notch filter without affecting the rest of the frequencies, turn it back around to them, the buzz is gone. And to them, it's like, well, it's really just simple technology, guys. Once you have once it's not hard. It's not hard at all.
But that's the type of information that I am sure is in abundance in this course. So Tim, thank you so much for spending all this time. And I don't want to take up any more of your time, but I do want to say thank you on behalf of the Peeps and myself for all of this amazing information. Diana has posted your email address, and you guys, if you are interested in the Audition Ready Online, she is also probably going to post that again for me if she could, to get into that course. By the way, until Saturday, Tim has been gracious enough to give us a 10% discount off of the course fee of $197, and that is going to be Ann-G, ANNEG, lowercase, right?
All lowercase,
all lowercase, and you guys can get access to that. I'll tell you what, guys, I wouldn't wait. I would get online with this ASAP, because I know that I need more information after I've already publicly admitted my crying.
And you can also see what people who are taking this course, who have taken my one-on-one course, are saying at the bottom there, testimonials. And by the way, this is not the only thing that I'm going to be adding. I'm also very much into SEO. It's one of the reasons that I get people contacting me instead of me auditioning. So I happen to be an expert in that field. You can go to Google and look up deep male voiceover. I'll likely be the first one to pop up. So this is a platform where I'm going to continue to grow. I'll be teaching about SEO, but for a lot of you listening out there, you'll probably be more excited possibly to know that I'm going to be teaching mixing courses. How to mix VO with music beds. All right. Cool. And that will be the next module likely. And that's really important because I get hired quite a bit when people hear my voice over a music bed where I know I'm right for the part. And so I drop in a dry and then with the bed. And then they say, hey, what bed was that? And, I say, well, it was X, and it sounds great. Can you just handle the whole thing for us? And that's really important these days because so many people are operating out of their basement. We have these mom and pop shops, and everyone and their mother is producing these days. And so you'd be probably, maybe, Anne, you wouldn't be surprised to know this, but a lot of filmographers and whatnot are interested in the Audition Ready course because it's teaching them how to mix actual vocals over a track. And we hear it on YouTube all the time. You're turning up or turning down your volume and you're like, God, I can't hear the guy. Well, how great would it be to have music and VO that's equally power? Their power center is equal, and they're playing together, and somehow mysteriously you can hear both, right? And that's what it is that I'm going to teach. And anyone who's enrolled in the course will, of course, get a discount on anything that I have moving forward. That's the way it will work. So yeah, so I hope to see you guys there. It would be great. And thank you, Anne, for taking the time.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank
My
you
pleasure.
so much. I'm so glad that we got this opportunity to talk. And you guys, again, check it out. Diana has posted that link. And up until Saturday, you'll get an additional 10% off this amazing course by Tim. Tim, have a wonderful day. Thank you so much again. Peeps, love you guys, and we'll see you soon. And for those of you that have friends that might want to watch this replay, I will be having the replay still in the VO Peeps group, so anybody can watch it at their leisure. So thanks again, Tim, for such wonderful information, and we'll see you guys later.
Bye, guys.